Hello, welcome to the video JUnit 5 tutorial for beginners with me, Nam Haming from CodeJava.net. Through this video, you will learn how to use JUnit 5, the next generation of JUnit testing framework in a Java project, and then you will learn how to write and run simple tests to understand the fundamental concepts in JUnit 5. And I will guide you how to write and run unit tests for real project testing CRUD operations. Create, retrieve, update, and delete with Hibernate framework. To follow this video tutorial, make sure that you have the following software programs installed on your computer: Java Development Kit JDK and Eclipse IDE. Let's start with a very simple Java project. You see, this is a Maven project in Eclipse IDE, and this is a calculator class which we need to write unit test for. And to use JUnit 5 for a Java project, we can specify dependencies in the Maven form.xml file. Dependencies, dependency. Group ID is org.JUnit.Jupiter, and artifact ID is JUnit-Jupiter. This is a dependency required to use JUnit 5 for a Java project, and the version is 5.6.2, which is the latest version at the time I'm writing this code. So to use JUnit 5, you can add this dependency to the project JUnit Jupiter. Save, and you will see Maven will automatically download the required Java files for JUnit. You see JUnit Jupiter, JUnit Jupiter API, JUnit Platform Commons, JUnit Jupiter Engine. And now let's write a test class to test the add method of this calculator class. Let's create a new Java class. Name it as calculator test. Finish. And to write a test method, we use the test annotation from the package org.junit.jupiter.api here, and write the method name public void test add success. The first case we need to test for the add method. We create a new calculator object, calculator equal new calculator, and declare two numbers, a equal 40, integer b equal 15, and the sum of these two numbers is a result of the call to the add method of the calculator, add a and b. And to assert this test method to check if this test case passes or not, we use the assertion method. In the JUnit 5, we use assertion utility class assertions with various assert method you see here. So to assert this test method, we use assertEquals to compare two values. AssertEquals. We expect that the sum is 55, and the actual is the value of the sum variable here. That's it. This is a very simple test method with JUnit 5. And now we can run this test method in the outline view. Here you can see the method test asset here. Right click, run as JUnit test, and you see Eclipse and display JUnit view to show the test result. You can see with a green bar indicator here. That means the test has passed successfully, and you can see the runs for the test here. Test class, calculator test, and test method with a green check mark here, indicating that the test has been successful. If you change the logic in the calculator class here, for example, plus by 1 in the result, and then run the test again. Okay, let me remove this view here. Okay, and let's run this test method again. Run, and you see now it failed with a red brown indicator bar here, and you can see the error message here. Expected 55 but was 56, so we can understand that the test failed and we need to fix the relevant classes, relevant code here, fix, and run the test again. And you see now the test has passed successfully, and we can write the second test method in the test class. Test this method we want to test as fail, to make sure that the calculator will not return a wrong result. We'll also create a new calculator object with two numbers 10 and 20, and assign some variable to the result of the add method, and we use the assertion. This time we assert not equals. Unexpected is, for example, 31, and actual is a value of the sum variable. It should return 30. So if we assert not equals, compare 31 with the sum, this test should pass. Okay, now in the outline view you can see the second test method, test as fail here, and right click, run as, run JUnit test, and you can see the test add fail method has passed successfully with a green check mark and a green indicator bar here. You can also run all the test methods in the test class. You right click on the test class and run as JUnit test, and this time in the JUnit view you can see all the test methods in the test class were executed. Test as fail and test as success. So that's basically how to write and run simple tests with JUnit file in Eclipse IDE. Now let me show you another way to write a test class. Now we implement another method for the calculator class for the subtraction. Int subtract integer a and integer b, and return a. minus subtracted by b. Subtract. And in Eclipse IDE, you can create a new test class by go to the menu file, new, other, and under the Java here you can see the JUnit here and choose JUnit test case and click next. And in this dialog, JUnit new JUnit test case, you can choose the version of JUnit test case you want to work with. For JUnit 5, it is a new JUnit Jupiter test, and by default the source folder for test is in the test folder, and the class name you can right click on a class to create test class here. Right click on calculator, new, as a, and choose JUnit 5 from here, Java JUnit test case, next. And you can see it automatically suggests the name of the test class is calculator test, and you can see the method steps setup before class, theta after class, setup, and theta. And I will explain to you what are these methods. Let's check all these methods to be generated. You can see the class under test is the calculator class, and click next. In the next screen, you can choose the methods in the class under test to write test. Here I choose both method add and subtract, and click finish. And this time you see the calculator test class is selected in the test source folder, which is a standard practice for unit test. Before I create a test class in the same package in the main source folder, but it is recommended to create a test class in the test source folder as Eclipse does, you see. And this is a generated calculator test class by Eclipse IDE, and you can see the method steps setup before class, theta after class, and setup and theta. And you can see Eclipse by default create two test methods, test add and test subtract, with the default fail, not yet implemented. So if you run this test class, it will fail. Now, for example, right click here, run as unit test, and you see both the test method fail, test add and test subtract by default. Now let me explain to you this kind of methods. The method that is annotated with the before all annotation here. This method is executed before all the test methods in the test class. So we use this kind of method to initialize resources like creating database connection before all the test methods which use a database connection. So for demonstration purpose, I just print something here. This method is executed before all test methods, and the method you see the tear down method here is the tear down after class method here is annotated with the after all annotation here. This method is always executed after all the test methods in the test class. So we use this method to close the resources, like closing database connection after all the test methods have been executed. This method is executed after all test methods now. In the test add method, we write code to test the add method in the calculator class. Create a new calculator object equal new calculator, and declare two number a equal 8t and b equal 25, and we calculate the sum of a and b. Calculator add a and b, and we use the assertions assertEquals. Yeah, expected is 125 and actual value is some variable, and we can write something here to demonstrate the before all and after all methods test and running. Now let's run this test add method. Right click the test add method here, run as JUnit test. We got an error here. Let's see. The test failed because the sum of 80 and 25 is 105, not 125. No problem. But in the control view, you can see this method is executed before all test methods and test add running, and then the message printed by the after all test method. Just to have you understand this before all and after all method, we change the expected to 105, and now the test should pass successfully, and you see. And similarly, let's write code to test the subtract method. Test subtract warning. Difference is calculator subtract a and b. Assertion assertEquals, and we expect that the result is 55, and the actual is a difference. And now let's run this test method, test subject, run as JUnit test. And you can see before the test subject method running, the before test method is executed, and after the test subject method finished, the test method after all executed. And now let's run all the test method in this class. You can right click on the test class here, run as JUnit test to run all the test methods. And this time you can see here is a before all method executed first, and then the test method, test and test subject, and lastly is after all test method executed. So that's to help you understand the purpose of the before all and after all step methods. And in addition, we have the setup method, which is annotated with the before each annotation. This method is executed before each test method. So we can use this method to initialize resources or something before each test method run. This method is executed before each test. And similarly, the tear down method, as you can see here, is annotated with the after each annotation here. This method is executed after each test method. And now we can run the whole test class to understand. Run here. And in the console view, you can see before the test add method, you see this method is executed before each test, and after this method is executed after each test. And before the test subject method, this method is executed before each test, and after that this method is executed after each test. So that you understand how this kind of methods before, after, before each and after each methods in JUnit 5. Well, so far you have learned to write and run simple tests with JUnit 5 in Eclipse IDE. Next, let me guide you how to write and run unit tests for a real project to test CRUD operation with Hibernate framework and MySQL database. So I have a Java project using a Hibernate framework here, and I want to write unit tests for this Hibernate UT class to test the CRUD operations. Create, retrieve, update, and delete against MySQL database. This Hibernate UT class simply declares a static method where session factory that returns a session factory, which is then can be used to obtain a session factory to perform CRUD operations. And this is a product entity class that map to the corresponding table in the database. And this is a Hibernate configuration file, and this is a Maven dependency for Hibernate framework and MySQL ZBC driver, MySQL connector, Java. And right click new as a JUnit test case, and next. And here we choose new JUnit Jupiter, which means JUnit 5. source folder. By default, in the test package name suggested is Hibernate UT test. Next, and I don't choose the registration factory method. Instead, I will choose I will run my own test method. Also, we check all this setup before class, data after class setup, and data methods. So finish. And Eclipse, we ask to add the unit file library to the build path. Okay. And under the unit 5 library here, you can see this Eclipse version comes with unit 5.5.1. You can see here. And this is a generated code for the test class. For testing CRUD operations with Hibernate, we need to have a session factory object and a session object. So we declare a static session factory here with static session factory. Session factory. And in the before all method, we create the session factory. So before all the test methods, we need to initialize the session factory. Let me write the CRUD test method first. Test create, test update, test create, test update, test create, test list all the rows in the database, and test delete, test delete. Okay, that's the CRUD test methods we implement. Now, before all the test methods run, we need to initialize the Hibernate session factory. So we write the code in the setup before class here. Session factory equal Hibernate UT session factory. And after all the test methods have finished, we need to close the session factory. So we write the code to close the session factory in the after all method here. Data after class method, session factory close. And before each test method run, we need to obtain a session from the session factory. So we write the code in the setup method, the before each method here. So we declare a session object, session variable here. This is not static. Session, Hibernate session. And in the setup method, we session equal session factory open session. And after test method have finished running, we need to close the session. So we write that code in the after each method, the data method here. Session close. So that's basically how to use this kind of before all, after all, before each, after each methods for testing Hibernate CRUD. We initialize the session factory before all the test method, and before each test method we open the session, and after each method we close the session, and after all test method we close the session factory. For demonstration purpose, I add print something after this method. System not print line session factory created, and for the teardown after class we print the session factory destroyed, and in the before each method we print session created, and in the after each method we print session closed. Session closed with a new line to separate between each test method. And now let's write the code for the test CRUD method that persists a product entity object to the database. I'm using MySQL database, and in the Hibernate configuration file you can see I'm using the test database. And for Hibernate forward engineering, I choose the SPM to DDL to just create to let Hibernate create the database. And this is my SQL workbench and the test database schema, and this time you see no tables at all. Now let me write code for this test CRUD method. We test persist an entity object to the database, running test create, and we begin transaction from the session, and we create a new product object, product equal new product with name and price, iPhone 10, and price is 789, and we save this entity object to the session session.save product, and this method return an integer which is identifier from the same method cast. And after that we commit the transaction to save the data session, get transaction, commit, and we assert this test method by assert the value of the ID object here, assertions dot assertTrue. This time we use the assertTrue method to validate a condition is true or false. The condition is ID greater than 0, which means the entity was persisted successfully in the database. And now let's run this test CRUD method. Run as JUnit test. Sorry. See, the test passed successfully. Yeah, you see. And in the console view, you can see some useful information. Hibernate creates a table products, and then it brings session factory created. So during the session factory initialization, I made create the database tables, and then the session created, and then the test create method running, and I made execute the insert statement. Then the session is closed, and finally the session factory destroyed, and the application exits. Very good, right? And now let's check the database. Yeah, refresh all, and you see the products table got created here with columns ID, name, and price. And select rows from this table, and you can see one product, iPhone 10, price 789. Exactly what we wrote in this test create method. And next, let's write code for the test get method to get a product from a database. So we print running test get, and specify the ID of the product to look for ID1, and we find the product equal session file. The type of the class is product class, and the primary key is the ID. And for this method, we can use assertEquals method to assert the product name. Expected is iPhone 10. Actual is the name of the return product object. Product get name. You see, in the database we have one product with ID 1 and name iPhone 10. Okay, and run this test get method, run as JUnit test. The test failed. No border exception. Sorry. For the second time, I need to change this value for this property. Let's check the database. Drop this table and run the test create method away. Run the test create method, test create, run as JUnit test. Okay. So after that, we have one row in the database here, and now change the value of this property to none. So Hibernate won't make any change to the database schema. And now we can run the test get method. Test get. You see the test has passed successfully. Test get here, and in the console view you can see the session factory created, session created, running test get, and you can see Hibernate execute the SQL select statement to select a product from the database, and after that session is closed, and finally session factory destroyed. I want to test the case that the product ID doesn't exist. So copy this test method and modify a little bit. Test that not exist. Running test that not exist. And this time I want to look for the product with ID 2. This product ID 2 doesn't exist in the database, so I assert I expect that the product object here is no. So I use the assertNull method, assertNull product. And now let's run this test with not exist method. Here we go. The test has passed successfully, and you see, so far so good, right? And let's write the code for the test list method that lists all products in the database. Running test list. For this kind method, we need to create a query. Hibernate query. Product query equal session. Create query. The query is from product simple Hibernate query, and then we execute the query to add the list of product list product result list equal query get result list, and we assert that the list collection is not empty, so we can use the assertion dot assertFalse method. The condition is result list is empty. This condition return false. This test we passed. For this method, we need to specify the type of the entity here, so it doesn't show the warning. Okay. Now let's run this test list method known as JUnit test. And you can see the test has passed successfully, and it print session factory created, session created, running test list, and I'm going to select all the products from the database. We can run all the test methods in this test class. For the create test create method, the second time we want to create another product. For example, Xbox 360 price 199. And now we can run. Let's run all the test method in this class. Unit test. And you can see in the JUnit view here, all the test methods have been executed. Test get successful, will not exist successful, test list successful, test create successful, test delete, and that update failed because we haven't implemented the code yet. And let's see the console view. You can see the session factory created first, and then session created to running the test get method, and you see Hibernate executed as select SQL statement, and then the session close. And for the next test method, you can see the session created and running test cannot exist, and session closed after the method. And then for the next test list method, the session is created and session closed. Session created to test create and session close. And for test delete and test update, and finally the session factory destroyed. So you will see is a usefulness of using this kind of methods before all, after all, before each and after each to initialize and release resources, after all and before all, before each, after all, and after each test method. Okay, now let's write code to implement the test update method. Oh, let's check the database, and you see we have the second row inserted for Xbox 360 here. Test update method to update an existing product in the database. Print running test update. We want to update the first product with ID 1. Create a new product object, product equal new product with ID name. We want to update the name of the product from iPhone 10 to iPhone 11. Price C is the same, 789, and we begin the transaction from the session. Begin transaction and update the product and commit the transaction. Session read transaction commit. And to assert this test method, we read the product again from the database. Product updated, product equal session file product.class, and primary key is ID. And we compare the name of this updated product with the string iPhone 11. Assertions assertEquals. Expected is iPhone 11, and actual is the name of the updated product. Get name. That's it. And run this test update method. You see the test has passed successfully. Test update, and you see session created, running test update, and Hibernate executed the SQL update statement. Very good, right? Let's check the database, and you can see iPhone 10 here, updated to iPhone 11. And now let's write the code to the last test method in the CRUD operation is a delete method here. Running test delete, and we want to delete the product with ID 1. Integer ID equal 1, and we find that product in the database. Product equal session file product.class and the ID. And we begin the transaction. And then we delete the product object and finally we commit the transaction. Commit. And then to assert this test delete method, we try to get the product from the database again, and this and it return object should be null. Deleted product. So with the assertions method, assert null, deleted product. That's it. Very simple. And run this test delete method. Successfully, you see. And in the console view, you can see Hibernate executes select SQL statement to find the product, and then it executes the delete SQL statement to remove the product, and finally it executes the SQL statement to check the product again. And let's check the database. You see the product iPhone 11 got deleted. Now let's try to run all the test methods in this test class to see what will happen. Run as the unit test. You see some test methods success and some fail. You see test get fail, test list success, test cannot exist in what error because row the first product deleted in the database. And you can see in the console view here, before each test method the session is created, and after each the session is closed. But the problem is that all the test methods were executed in an undetermined order. You see, get, list, get, delete, and update. We want to execute all the test methods in this test card in a specified determined order. So we can use the annotation for the test class here. Test method order, and we use the order number annotation. Order annotation class, and then we can specify the order number for the test method. We want to execute the test create method first, so we specify its order is 1. And then we want to execute the test get, so we specify the order 2. Note that the unit doesn't execute test methods in the order they appear in the code, so we need to specify the order. We want to execute the test cannot exist in the third, so order 3 here. And we want to execute the test list the fourth, so we specify the fourth order for this method. And then we want to run the test update the fifth, so we specify the order 5th. And lastly, we run the test delete method lastly, so we specify the order 6. So we have 6 test methods in this class, 2, 4, 6. Okay, I want to create the database again, so I drop the table in the database. Drop now. Okay, now we can run all the test methods in this test class in specified order. determine order. Run as the unit test. You see all the tests executed, but in the test get we got an error. No problem. Let's look at the order. You see test create, test get not exist, test list, test update, and test delete. Exactly the order we specify. For the test get method, we got an error here. iPhone 10, but in the create method we specify the name of the product is Xbox 360. So this should be Xbox 360, no problem. Okay, so far you have learned how to run unit test for testing CRUD operation with Hibernate framework. Throughout this video, you learn how to use the basic annotation with the unit file test before all, after all, before each, after each, test method order, and you also learn to use the basic assertion methods: assertEquals, assertNotEquals, assertTrue, assertFalse, and assertNull, assertNotNull. I hope you will find this video tutorial helpful. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thank you.